Rashid never imagined that the small house next to his would one day become the place where his entire life would quietly change. When he first moved into the quiet neighborhood, he was a man carrying invisible wounds. A failed marriage had left him broken and silent, and the whispers of neighbors about his past made it harder for him to trust anyone again. The streets were narrow, the houses close, and in such places nothing remained hidden for long. People often judged what they did not understand. Rashid spent most of his days working long hours at a small printing shop and returned home only to find silence waiting for him. The evenings felt longer than they should have been, and the loneliness had slowly become a part of his routine. But everything began to shift the day a new family moved into the house beside his. The house next door soon filled with gentle laughter, the clinking of dishes, and the soft sound of someone humming while watering plants in the small front garden. That someone was Amina. She was a quiet woman with kind eyes and a calm smile that carried patience in it. She lived with her elderly mother and her younger brother, who was still studying in college. The neighborhood, as always, had its opinions. Some people whispered that Amina had returned to her family after her own marriage failed because of betrayal. Others simply said she was a woman who had seen too much pain too early in life. Rashid heard the whispers too, but he chose not to believe stories that came from mouths that never truly cared. For him, Amina was simply the neighbor who greeted everyone with respect and spoke softly even when people were not always kind. Their first real conversation happened on a rainy evening. Rashid had returned home late from work when he saw Amina struggling to bring a basket of groceries inside while the rain poured heavily. Without thinking too much, he walked over and offered help. She hesitated for a moment, the way people do when life has taught them to be careful, but then she nodded gratefully. They carried the groceries together under the small shade near her door. It was a short moment, but in that brief exchange Rashid noticed something rare in her voice: sincerity. She thanked him with a warmth that felt genuine, not forced. That evening, for the first time in a long while, Rashid did not feel the usual emptiness when he entered his own house. Days turned into weeks, and slowly their conversations became a small but meaningful part of their daily lives. Sometimes it was just a greeting in the morning, sometimes a brief chat about work, weather, or the neighborhood. Rashid learned that Amina spent most of her time taking care of her mother while also working part-time as a tutor for children in the area. She carried many responsibilities quietly, without complaining. What impressed Rashid the most was her patience. Even when the neighborhood gossip reached her ears, she never responded with anger. She simply continued living her life with dignity. The neighbors, however, were always watching. In places where people have little excitement in their own lives, they often create stories about others. Soon, whispers began to spread again. Some people noticed Rashid occasionally helping Amina with small tasks, fixing a broken gate, bringing medicine for her mother, or carrying heavy items from the market. To Rashid, these were simple acts of kindness. But to the neighborhood, they became something else entirely. Rumors started quietly, then grew louder. People questioned why two individuals with painful pasts were spending time helping each other. Rashid tried to ignore it, but the past had already made him sensitive to judgment. His previous marriage had ended because his former wife had betrayed his trust. The pain of infidelity had left him cautious and guarded. When he heard the neighbors using words like suspicious and improper, it reopened wounds he thought had healed. For a few days, he began avoiding Amina, not because he disliked her but because he feared causing more problems for her reputation. Amina noticed the distance almost immediately. She had lived through betrayal herself and had learned to read silence better than words. One afternoon, when Rashid returned from work, he found her standing near the small fence between their houses. She spoke calmly, without accusation. She said she understood why he was stepping back. The neighborhood had a way of turning kindness into scandal. But then she said something that stayed with Rashid forever. She said, "Sometimes people who have been hurt by lies are the only ones who truly understand the value of honesty." Her words carried no bitterness, only quiet truth. Rashid realized that avoiding her would only prove the neighbors right, that their kindness was something shameful. Instead, he chose something different. He chose respect and courage. From that day forward, He continued to treat Amina and her family with the same kindness, but always with dignity and clear boundaries. Their friendship remained pure and respectful, something built on mutual understanding rather than hidden intentions. Months passed, and the neighborhood slowly began to see something they had not expected. Rashid never behaved in a way that dishonored Amina. Amina never allowed gossip to change her character. Their interactions were simple, honest, and always respectful. Rashid would sometimes help Amina's brother with job applications. Amina would occasionally send food for Rashid when she cooked extra for her mother. It was a quiet companionship built not on romance alone, but on trust and shared healing. One evening, Rashid received terrible news. The printing shop where he worked had to close because of financial problems. Suddenly, the routine that kept his life stable disappeared. Losing his job felt like losing the last piece of structure he had left. For several days he stayed home, unsure about what to do next. It was Amina who gently reminded him that difficult times often carry hidden opportunities. She encouraged him to start a small printing service from home since many students and small businesses in the area needed affordable printing. At first, Rashid doubted himself, but Amina and her brother helped him spread the word around the neighborhood. Slowly, small orders began to arrive. Flyers, school assignments, small posters, nothing big, but enough to keep him moving forward. What surprised Rashid the most was how some of the same neighbors who once spread rumors now became his customers. Perhaps they had started to see that kindness between two people did not always mean something improper. Over time, Rashid and Amina's friendship deepened into something more meaningful. It was not the loud, dramatic kind of love often shown in movies. It was quieter, stronger, built slowly, like a tree growing deep roots. Rashid admired Amina's patience and strength. Amina respected Rashid's honesty and resilience. They both understood pain, which made them careful not to hurt each other. Eventually, even Amina's mother noticed the gentle bond between them. One evening, she spoke softly to Rashid when he came to deliver some printed papers for Amina's tutoring students. She told him that life sometimes gives people a second chance through unexpected paths. She said she had watched them both for months and saw nothing but sincerity between them. Rashid spent many nights thinking about those words. Love after betrayal is not easy. It requires courage to trust again. But Rashid realized that what he felt for Amina was not built on excitement or impulse. It was built on respect, patience, and the quiet understanding of two wounded hearts learning to heal. One simple afternoon, as the sun began to set and the neighborhood children played in the street, Rashid spoke honestly to Amina. He told her that he respected her deeply and that her presence had brought peace back into his life. He said he did not want to rush anything or cause her discomfort, but if she ever felt ready to build a future based on trust and friendship, he would be honored to walk that path with her. Amina listened silently for a moment. Then she smiled, a gentle smile filled with relief and hope. She told him that real love is not about grand promises, but about everyday actions that show care and loyalty. She had seen those actions in him for months. When the neighbors eventually heard that Rashid and Amina were planning to marry, many of them felt surprised. The same people who once doubted them had unknowingly become witnesses to a love story built on patience and respect. They had watched two broken individuals slowly rebuild trust in the most honest way possible. Their wedding was simple, attended by family and neighbors who had once judged them. But the atmosphere carried something deeper than celebration. It carried a lesson. Because the truth was simple, love does not always begin with perfect circumstances. Sometimes it grows quietly between two people who understand pain, who choose kindness over pride, and who prove through their actions that respect and honesty can heal even the deepest wounds. And the neighbors who once whispered about them eventually became the same neighbors who told others about the couple next door, who taught them something important. That true love is not about avoiding hardship, but about standing with someone through it with patience, dignity, and unwavering respect.